In this video, I'm going to discuss with you the best settings in Wild Rift to increase your win rate and rank up faster. And we're getting started right now. Okay, so the first setting is personal preference here, and this would be the in-game chat. Now, if you have it on all chat, I think it's a little bit risky if you're a tilted player. I mean, maybe you make one questionable play and the enemy team flames you, or something just happens that irritates you. You're gonna be making bad plays after you get flamed and you're gonna get tilted. So essentially, if you know you have a strong mental and you can handle the enemy team occasionally flaming you because they're probably tilted themselves, then you can have all chat on, but otherwise it's safer to just have team chat only so you don't have to worry about those whiny enemies on the other side of the map. So anyways, next up here we have open invitation, invite pop-up, display achievements. All that stuff doesn't really matter. I'm gonna go ahead and just skip over the rest of this stuff. So next we're gonna move on to graphics. Now this is really dependent on your device. If you have a device that you think is pretty good, I would make your settings a little bit lower even though you think your device can handle them, because you never know. Sometimes your settings are too high for your device and you just, you could have gotten a better frame rate, or you could have gotten a little bit smoother gameplay, but you ran your graphics too high. Now, I know that my iPad's, pretty capable. I have the 2017 10.5 inch Pro. It's a little older, but it's still a pretty good iPad, so I'm able to run this higher, graphic settings. And of course I record videos, so I like to give you guys the best graphics possible. I would keep 60 FPS on at all times if your device can handle it. If you want 60 FPS but your thing is lagging, I would just put all of your settings on low and then see if your device will stop lagging. That's really the best way to get that steady 60 FPS, is just put everything on low. For the resolution, I just put this on high because my device can handle it. I would strive to try to get a medium. If you have to go low, then you have to go low. Anything for the frame rate, in my opinion. Frame rate is more important than everything else. Post-processing, I think this is probably fine if you have it on or off. I've never really seen a huge difference either way. Floating text, this is like the little numbers that pop up next to the enemy, like when you do damage. They can be distracting if you're easily distracted by that stuff. I personally find them, very informative because it tells me exactly like how much damage I'm doing and that kind of thing. So if you like that, then turn it on. If it's too distracting, turn it off. For the interface animations, it doesn't make a huge difference. On or off is fine. Character inking, this is also kind of personal preference. I've heard some people say that, turning it on is like actually really helpful, but I don't know. I find it pretty good either way. Basically what it does is just creates a little black outline around the characters. Some people say, again, it makes it like easier to see them, but personally, I mean, I can see all the champions pretty much fine, so I don't think that matters too much. If you're on a very small device, maybe turn that on. For the map brightness, I have this all the way up, and then for the FOW brightness, I have this also all the way up. I just like having things a little bit brighter. If you have it down, it may make things a little bit harder to see or catch, off the corner of your eye, so I just have it all the way up. Screen edge offset, that doesn't really matter. That has to do with your HUD, which we'll talk about later. Okay, so sound settings, this is not that important. Just know that if you do have sound, it can be helpful. It's not like an FPS game where if you have sound, it's going to be like an insane advantage compared to someone who doesn't have sound. You can play Wild Rift without sound, it'd be fine. For the other section, there's nothing here that's actually critical, so just do whatever you want. Okay, now moving on to the bread and butter of this video. So the controls, this is where stuff really starts impacting your gameplay. So first we have the portrait lock. There's a few different options here that I've seen people use. The priority and the fixed display are both pretty good if you're a ranged champion. In my opinion, if you're a melee champion, these settings are not really necessary. Now, yes, I do play Yasuo a lot, so technically I could have this off, but I think if you can handle it, turning this on, it's pretty useful because it can allow you to, select your champion and, select the enemy champion, instead of like accidentally misclicking or something like that. So I think it is useful, but it can be annoying. So if you don't like it and you're a melee champ user, I would just turn it off. Now, as far as which one's better, priority or fixed display, they're both pretty good. It just depends on preference. It's not like one of them's automatically going to make you better. It just really depends on personal preference. You can go ahead and read it. I personally have priority display, but I don't think it makes a huge difference in gameplay. Targeting priority. This one is actually really important, even though it doesn't seem like it. So low health absolute basically makes your target priority on the one with the lowest health no matter what, and then the low health percent makes your targeting priority on like the one that has the lowest health percentage. So let me explain why I have it on absolute health for the targeting priority. The reason I have it like this is best explained by an example. So let's say you have an enemy Malphite that has 9% health, and you have an enemy Lux that has 10% health. If you have this on low health percentage, you're gonna prioritize the Malphite because it has less health. Like I said, it has 9% health. But who do you actually want to attack? The Lux with 10% health, because the Malphites are naturally tankier. So a Malphite with 9% health is actually gonna have more health, a lot more health than a Lux with 10% health. Even though the Lux has more percent, the Malphite is still gonna have more health overall. So if you have this on low health absolute, no matter what the percentages are, no matter who is a squishy, who is a tank, it's always gonna attack the one with less health. It doesn't matter, like I said, tank or squishy. But if you have it on percent health, it can make you attack the target that actually has more health, even though they have less percent. So yeah, that's why I would put it on absolute. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does make a difference. So yeah, moving on to force attack follow. Now, this is a setting that is pretty controversial. I've seen a lot of people use on, I've seen a lot of people use off. I think if you're a ranged champion, on can be pretty good because it can help you with kiting. But if you're a melee champion, I think it really is just personal preference. If you do have force attack follow on, just keep in mind that sometimes you forget it's on and you might accidentally like run into a turret, take a shot because, you know, you click the auto attack button and your champion starts walking towards them even though you're not in range. So if you do have it on, just be careful. If you have it off, then you'll be fine no matter what. But some people like that, you know, just automatically following somebody. You don't have to actually move your joystick. So I don't know. I think it's pretty much personal preference, but if you have a ranged champion, it might help you to have it on because you can kite better. So for the dash and move direction, I would keep this on. For champions like Tryndamere, it's just really useful. You can dash wherever you swipe to. But I mean, if you have it off, it's still pretty good. I just recommend having it on for most champions. For the move stick type, I think the default is best. The follow one, I really don't like. And the locked one, I think is okay. I mean, they're both good, locked and default. I just really don't like the follow. I would just recommend the default one. It's the most simple, the most straightforward. But if you want to go locked, you can go locked. Okay, locked button centers. I would keep this off like pretty much no matter what. Just don't even turn this on. Basically, it makes it so like if you want to cast a spell, if your finger like taps a little bit on the outside area of the spell, it'll cast from the center, like if your finger touches the center, and it could just screw up your skill shots. So just turn it off. Trust me, it's always better. For the action cancel method, this one's also pretty controversial. I've seen a lot of people go alternative, seen a lot of people go default. I personally like both of them. So I have it on default right now, but for certain champions, I think alternative is better. It really just comes down to whatever you can do quicker on the fly. And I think alternative you can do quicker, but with some champions with like skill shots and stuff, you might accidentally cancel with alternative even if you didn't mean to cancel, and that's why default is better. So it kind of depends, but choosing one over the other is not going to make you like an insane player all of a sudden. They're not that big of a deal. Aim panning, I would always have this on. It just basically makes it so you could see more range when you're casting like a longer range skill shot. You can kind of see where the skill shot's going to hit, if that makes sense. I mean, you can see it by the picture here, but yeah, I would just keep that on pretty much no matter what. Camera pan sensitivity, this is personal preference. Depending on how small your screen is, you might want to have a higher pan. If you have a big screen, you might need to have less pan. I just keep it in the middle because that's kind of what I'm used to, so I don't really want to change it. For the ability minicam, I would always have this on. I think it's really useful. It basically shows you where like a global ultimate or something is going to be. It doesn't have to be an ultimate, just anything that you're using that's like happening on the other side of the map. It's going to show you what's happening. Like a Jinx ult, it'll show you where that rocket is going to hit. So just a pretty good little thing to have. Death and spectate panning, this is not going to really affect your gameplay. I just keep it on natural, but again, it's not going to do anything. Do whatever you want. Semi-lock camera, I've tried both of these, and to be honest with you, I don't really have a preference. It really just depends, honestly. It just depends on if you want to use it or not, because if you have it off, you could still do things that will do the exact same thing as it. Because if you have it off, it's not like you're lacking that feature. You could still pan around the map just in different ways, which might be better for you. Okay, mini-map auto pathing. This one, this is kind of controversial. So I've seen a lot of people say, yes, turn it on. I don't like it. Now, the reason I don't like it is because I like to be able to tap on the minimap and quickly jump my camera to that location to see what's going on. If you turn this on, you can't jump to that location. All it does is just tell your character go there, which I think is a good feature. I do like it. I just don't like how it takes away the ability for you to just quickly jump onto the map to a certain location. You literally just tap the minimap wherever you want to see and it will show you. So yeah, I turn it off. Warding aim assist, I would turn this off. However, if you're like a new player and you just want to have it on, sure, but once you're kind of more experienced, turning it on can kind of get annoying and get in the way, but it doesn't really like affect a ton, you know. Anyways, level up suggestions. This is also very, I wouldn't say controversial, just extremely like dependent on who you play. A lot of players will be like, oh, always turn this off, and a lot of players will be like, yeah, just turn it on, it's always gonna help you. So it just depends on the scenario. So for me, I play a lot of Yasuo, and the recommended skill order for Yasuo is like the same skill order that I always choose. So I have level up suggestions on, and I have my auto level up on instant because it just does it for me, and it's the ability I'm gonna pick anyways, like the ability I'm gonna level up anyways. So if you have a champion that the recommended like path for leveling up your abilities is the same path that you would normally take, I would just keep it on and then put your auto level up on instant. If it's somebody like, what's a champion that you can max different things, like Annie maybe, or Janna, where sometimes you max a different ability, then just turn it off. It's gonna screw you up, you know, it's gonna auto level up an ability that you did not want. So it depends on the champion. Champions outlined at screen edge, I would always turn this on. It just helps with visibility, knowing where the champions are, and just overall, it's just useful. There's really no reason to turn it off. We're moving into one of the biggest factors for settings now, and that is the HUD or the button layout. Now, the one I have right now, I would not recommend this, and let me tell you why it looks so different from a lot of the standard HUDs that people use. I used to play with 6 fingers on Call of Duty Mobile, which is a mobile shooter game, and I've always used multiple fingers since then, and I figured why not transfer that over to Wild Rift, since I play a lot of mechanically intensive champions like Yasuo. Multiple fingers might be, you know, beneficial, in which they are. I'm able to execute combos a lot easier, but point being, don't use this. This is like a special case if maybe you came from a background where you're using a lot of fingers. This is what I would actually recommend to you guys. So I just made this one here for the phone. Now it is a slight alteration from the default one. I'll show you what the default one looks like. I just have it here as preset 2. This is like the default HUD they give you. I feel like the buttons could be a little bit more condensed and easier to access. So if you're on a phone or if you're on a tablet and you're using your thumbs to play, which I assume 99% of you guys are, then you can go ahead and use this one right here, which is like a slight variation from the default one. I just think it's overall a little bit better because everything's more closer. The summoner spells are closer, recall buttons underneath your movement stick, and everything else is just kind of like condensed a little bit. So yeah, this is a good HUD. As far as copying somebody's HUD, I know some of you guys might do that. I would not recommend it. I think it's completely based on what is comfortable for you, not just because a good player is using it, I'm gonna use it. It's not that at all. Do what is comfortable for you, but if you don't really have any good ideas, this is a good start. All right, next up, I'm gonna talk about one of the most underrated and underused settings, and this is the chat feature, or the quick chat as they call it. Now, this is actually game changing. Believe it or not, this is important. Like, it is really important. A lot of players think that, you know, you could just type it in the chat, or a lot of players won't see this stuff, and it is true. A lot of the stuff that you will send, some players, they'll see it, but they won't actually register it. But this information, if you actually read some of these commands, they're really important depending on the different roles you're playing. For example, if you're a jungler, there's stuff like I'm ganking middle lane, ganking bottom lane, top lane. If you are trying to give a buff over, you could say, can I take the buff? And there's just things that kind of say like don't fight, or farm, don't fight, don't engage. This type of stuff, if you spam it in the chat when you have teammates that look like they're about to make a bad decision, you could probably increase the chance of them listening to you, or at least making the right play, by maybe 10 to 20% chance, which makes a pretty big difference in solo queue. So if you have the right in-game messages here, you only get 8 slots. If you have the right ones that you use most of the time and they are the most effective as far as like communication, I think it can really make an impact. I mean, it's hard to actually measure how much of an impact these messages have on your teammates, but just knowing that you can send them out, spam them, and make sure your teammates see them because you're, sending it multiple times, you can definitely change the plays that your teammates will make, or they might think a second time about rushing straight into a 1v3. So I would just consider this. It's definitely underrated. Even if your teammates don't always listen to you, when you do get higher up on ladder into higher elos, like, maybe Platinum Plus, then your teammates will start listening and it just becomes extremely useful. If you guys do want to watch more educational Wild Rift content just like this video, go ahead and check out some of the other videos on the Rift, and go ahead and also subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all the stuff that I upload here. And if you did enjoy, of course, this video in specific, you can let me know by leaving a like. And if you guys do want to talk with other members of the Wild Rift community, you can actually join the Rift Discord server. I'll leave that server link in the description for those of you guys that want to check it out. All right, well, it's been Gregory, and I'll see you next time on the Rift.